as part of the mine economics and the financial models, we factor in the cost tariffs as an industry, noting where we are at now, but I'll use our project. Mingomba is designed to have a 50-year mine life. We have to work through successive governments. We have to foresee things with a crystal ball where we don't know, back to the risk, for the next 50 years. That includes how much power will be required. We have a view of what we need right now, and that is modeled into the economics. Where do we source it from? We know there's a challenge with climate change. Ooh, here we go. We know there's a challenge with climate change and the issues with the dam. What do we do about wheeling power from, say, northern Zambia? So we've actually explored. The company internally, a lot of the other team members in Kobold Global have built and worked on solar or energy products in past lives of theirs. So part of that expertise and understanding what people, let's say within our Copper Belt catchment area would need, do we generate our own power and then push it into the grid? I have taken keen interest into this open access issue because it's not only for getting the mine running so it can produce. It's a huge risk if something goes off and you are underground, but also the ecosystem of the town. So all of that is modeled. Now, when you model with uncertainty, with policies that are not clear, that can literally, the financial analysts will tell you, it can throw the economics of any project out. That is why we have to have these discussions, these courageous conversations to say, the mine does require power. If you look at, we looked next door in the DRC, everyone's always talked about the Inga Dam. We've also looked at what Kamoa Kakula had to do in terms of buying these 3.2 megawatt generators, meaning they were still spending a lot of money on fuel, which drives up the cost of production, which will impact your bottom line margins in terms of your profitability. So this requires a lot of collaboration and dialogue, whether it's with ZESCO, ERB, IPPs. We have to model that. To model in uncertainty with a pension as money, all of us somehow must be paying NAPSA. We have to think of it from that point of view. So we've kind of had a view of what is Chirirawombwe consuming as the population grows. In 50 years, what's the population of Chirirawombwe? How much power infrastructure will be needed? How will wheeling be done if we can't wheel from southern Zambia? There's water in the Kongola Basin. How do we push it up? Work with people and figure out how much that excess water can go into the dam. Those thoughts are there. But it requires a lot of creativity and a lot of collaboration between different divisions. Ministry of Infrastructure, Energy, Mines, international partners. It's not a simple answer, but the thoughts are there. Could I answer the second one? Geology, to Mr. Chapel. There's a lot that is being done. I do know, I was sponsored for my master's degree in mining engineer by First Quantum. So I cannot take that away. It was an opportunity to grow. And there were a number of us on that program, Zambians. Secondly, with Kobold at Mingomba in partnership with ZCCM, we are collaborating with both CBU and the University of Zambia to co-teach geology with data science. We're sponsoring 5 students from each university on a master's program with Stanford University. That effort is there. We're collaborating with Professor Imasiku Nyambe to make sure that the geoscientists of today and coming up are brought up to a certain standard. It's required. Down to geotechnicians, the guys who go in the bush and do core logging and marking. I had a mention, I hear Tebeta is doing something about making sure that's a formal skill set. I don't know where it is, but it's something that I've picked up by seeing it is not formalized to train how people should core log and mark when they're in the bush. And by inviting people to see what does exploration look like, take a trip to Chipiri and ask the doc to say, can we see what this looks like? Come up to Mingomba and say, what does it look like in the exploration stage? It makes the mine development conversation more clear. Please excuse me. Thanks. On the topic of local content, it seems to have picked a side, but the terminology is actually agnostic. It doesn't sit on any side. The fact that there's discourse and discussion is very good. It's absolutely necessary. But when we look at all the mines in operation, or companies like ourselves in exploration, everybody wants to endeavor to make sure that there's a source in country. That helps everyone. It's nearby, there's a service, whether it's a good or a service. When it's not in country, it's the duty of the operation to figure out where in the world are we going to get these things. Again, an industry that is, I would say, mechanized 100 years old, has been there for a while, but there's a sentiment that there is not enough in local content. I know a few of the other mining houses have endeavored to produce reports. I always say, has anyone even read, for the publicly listed companies, your FQMs, read their reports on ESG? Yeah. A lot of this information is there. However, it does not seem to trickle down. So we need to find out what is the meaning of local content. We are an exploration campus. We are not as big, but if you come to Mingomba today, you will see local companies providing goods and services, whether it's maintenance, whether it's landscaping, whether it's cleaning, even in drilling, exploration drilling, which has not been in operation, at least at scale as a market. It's hard, even for the multinationals from other countries to get into exploration. We have endeavored to find Zambian exploration companies without their law saying go and do it, because it is the right thing to do. It's more the purpose of the firm. I'll link to what Dr. Sixter said. I'm also a Zambian, I'm also local, but I don't know Bill Gates, you know? There's that perception that you are on the other side. There are no sides to this matter. So I think it's kind of coming down to the sector starting to show a lot of what it's doing. Existing mining houses, explorers, to say this is being done through the people you see on those operations, through the different companies. And we tell them, even in our procurement policies, endeavor to source whatever consumables you source in the country. If you can't, are we going to stop the operation? If we can't find it, we can't. Otherwise, then we stop the investment. I think that's what I can say on that. Linked to community support, which is one of our company's values. We are in the Chirirabombwe area. The first thing that we did as a team is understand what is the 8th National Development Plan, what is the focus of the current government. Chirirabombwe has an integrated development plan. We went and read it. We sat with the mayor. We understood from the MP what are the key needs linked to the UN SDGs. That way we're not doing window dressing things that look nice and you clap and you cut a ribbon, but if there's a need for education, a need for healthcare matters. If you know Chirirabombwe Kasumbalesa, just as a side fact, produces 600 tons of waste per day and has no landfill, no engineered landfill. There's open dumping. How can we alleviate? Those are real community initiatives that we're doing with those communities. It's not talked about. It's almost of, there's this that is not happening. But if you come to Chirirabombwe, you will find there is that communication and dialogue with ourselves and our immediate communities. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to the PwC team for inviting me once again. Dr. Malenga's slide just segues right into what I wanted to talk about. When we speak of mineral exploration, it's a sequence of activities to test the mineral prospect, to test what you think you will find. And for context, you could see from the roadmap that it's not one thing. We do know government has embarked on a geophysical survey. It is a step, but it is not the thing that will decide. You're looking for a signature or an anomaly that will help you guide if you will continue your work. As shown, you have 4 to 15 years of spending capital where you may or may not find something. For context, world over, 1 in 40 exploration projects become a mine. That is how hard it is. In Zambia, and I got this from someone at ASMEC, so if I'm wrong, they can clarify if they're here, it's 1 in 200. Now, Andrew, to your slide, that shows the gap on new finds. Those are all exploration opportunities. But note that not every exploration activity will convert. That is why it is such a sensitive topic, and I like that the PS said, you know, tell the king that he is naked, because the reality is the work is actually, it's quite hard, and it's a sequence of activities. On Dr. Malenga's slides, you have geophysical surveys. You can have aerial, you can have ground, you can be in the borehole. There's geochemistry. If you're in Namibia where they have to look at fossils, there's paleontology, there's petrology. I think Zambia, we are in a space where 2024, it's 100 years of mechanized mining. The territory as it was known 100 years ago in 1924 was a company, a mineral exploration company in the BSA that was looking, because the work needed to be done. But we do know that our ancestors then were working malachite, were working iron, were working copper. We are familiar with this. Maybe we have just forgotten, but as a country we are familiar because it's been there from antiquity. But because these minerals have been there, we kind of assume that when you mine, it's there tomorrow. From that timeline, you can see that it's actually quite hard. So we've kind of forgotten the fundamental principles of mineral exploration. It's not an emotional issue. It is scientific, and I think that's what we have to go to the science, and this is why the industry talks about the scientific part, which requires patience, but in the modern era, there is technology, and that's why we're pushing that element. So to answer your question, it's many things. I like to simplify it. One of my colleagues simplifies it. If you go to the doctor and you say you have a headache, he can either put the thermometer, if you're a child, in your mouth, in your armpit, or he can check your toes. Every doctor is different. Exploration is similar. The question is, how effective are you going to be at using the different techniques to diagnose what is wrong in the human body? And that's the same with mineral systems. They behave differently. In Zambia, it's been studied, but it's gotten harder, because if you're doing 1 in 200 are becoming a mine, and we have a gap to get to 3 million tons, we have to take it from a logical, scientific point of view. It's hard work.